Well, welcome to this Stay Kind conversation, and I'm very happy to be joined by the Governor General and Mrs. Hurley. Your Excellencies, thank you so much for joining us.
Jane, real delight. Thank you. We're very pleased.
It's a pleasure.
We have to start by asking you, as it's about to be Kind July, I want, first of all, both of you, what is your best tip to remain kind when around us perhaps we don't feel quite that way?
In my position, I'm always been mindful that, who do you work for? The role you play. This is a public service and you're there for other people. And the way you respond to them and create an environment that it's an successful engagement for them is important. Now, I know that doesn't sound like it's personal, but in our job, making sure each of those interactions are the most positive and uplifting as they can be for people. And so we've constantly got that in our mind when we're going about doing our work on a daily basis.
It's much easier to be kind than unkind. Like, it's much easier to smile than it is to frown.
There's wisdom.
And I think hopefully it comes naturally that we want to be kind to each other and we want to care about people. Kindness and caring is one of the most special things human beings can do with each other.
Your jobs entail going around and seeing Australians, some of them we don't know very well, but they're always doing amazing things in amazing circumstances. In a sense, do you think that you get to see people at their best or people at their worst?
Definitely at their best.
Yeah. More often than not at their best. We see them in dire situations after natural disasters, of course. But the vast majority of people we engage with are people who are committed to community, helping each other out, really putting in, volunteering and so on to make the community a better place. So it's a very uplifting environment that we work in.
I wonder if I can ask you, Mrs. Hurley, do you often find that after you've visited people in a very difficult situation, do their stories and do their situations remain with you?
They certainly do. I keep a daily diary or journal. So this diary will never be published. It's totally, my private diary. But I write about the people I meet. And I've met so many people that have really seriously touched my life. And some of them, particularly in the bushfires, at recovery centres, I've met people in situations like that where they've lost everything and they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And they have shared their stories. And I remember those stories so well. And there's one woman who the chances of me ever meeting her again are probably zero. But I think about her a lot because she told me her whole story and her whole life story. And there was a lot of tragedy in there. And I often think about her. And then there's other people who I've met in the same situations in recovery centres who I've revisited. And that is the most special thing ever. And when a gentleman comes up to you and says, the last time I met you, I was crying on your shoulder. And then now he is talking about his future, his home, what it's going to be like. And for us, that is so special to get that news that they're recovering.
Governor General, what about you? Have you had a similar experience to Mrs. Hurley?
Yeah, we have as one of our priorities to revisit the bushfire affected communities, and we have a rolling program to do that. So later this year, for example, we'll be in Kangaroo Island to go and open the show on Kangaroo Island. And I know we'll meet people there that we met once or twice, once on their darkest day, the next time when the recovery is occurring but hasn't progressed, and now we'll see them in a different light. And that's just, it's an amazing gift to us to be able to share people's stories. And we'll often, because some of our days can be quite long, as you can imagine, but at the end of them, we will say, "Wow, did you meet that person, or did you hear that person's story, or wasn't that person so astounding in the way they were, helping out others, or the way they'd responded personally to a tragedy?" No, so they are quite profound, and it is a very emotional appointment.
Wow.
Because we're on a roller coaster with the community as they go through their experiences. So, frankly, today I'm in a dark mood because of COVID-19 and stopping us, locking everybody down. And when we were on a good glide path there for a while, and now we're sort of set back a bit, and that really annoys me. But we have to deal with that, and we've got to go beyond that in this job and be out there for people and say, right, let's keep focused on this. Do the right thing, follow the direction we're given, and we'll get back to where we were.
Since we're talking about COVID, we were chatting briefly about it earlier. I know for many people, it's in a sense, you're not allowed to dream currently. I mean, we know that lockdown isn't going to last forever, those parts of the country that are in lockdown, but it does seem to make it very difficult to look forward. I wonder, do you pick up that sense too?
I think people are a bit apprehensive in that sense, with people booking holidays and all that sort of things, and what's going to happen, and uncertain. So I think there is an element of uncertainty in people's lives. So, we make plans, but we always have to have, that emotional resilience and also plan B to deal with it. And I think, that's what we've got to manage at the moment. And in that sense, to the topic of the day, kindness, we can be kind to each other by the way we prepare personally to deal with this pandemic, in the way we approaching vaccination properly, making sure that we observe direction that's given for our good health and so forth. So that is, I think, a grand act of kindness to each other. It's a gift we can give to each other to get us through this. And if we sit back and we're doing it all for ourselves, that's when societies, I think, have problems in these situations.
There was another person I met in a recovery centre, and she looked really content, and I wasn't going to go and speak to her because she seemed really content. She was crocheting, and then she looked up and smiled at me, and that smile encouraged me to go and speak to her, and I spoke to her for a long time. So kindness can just be in a smile, happy word.
I'd like to ask you both, maybe Mrs. Hurley, you could start first. Tell me a little bit about you as a child and the part that kindness played as you were growing up. Did you have an easy, happy life?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I was the baby of 4 children, and my older brother and 2 sisters, they were quite old. Like, my brother was 15 years older, sister was 12 years older, another sister was 6 years older, and then me. And so I was definitely the baby in the family. But I grew up with quite old brothers and sisters, older brothers and sisters. So I had a really happy childhood. I had a wonderful mother and father, and I was very, very close to my mother. And my big brother always defended me. Not that I was very naughty. But
you were never naughty.
He was always on my side.
Goody two-shoes.
And no, I was very happy. I think I was quite shy when I was little. But I had the girl next door who I played with, and we had a lovely time playing in each other's houses and, riding our bikes with my cousin. And I loved school, although apparently my mother used to drive me to school, and I wouldn't go into the playground until the bell went. Apparently I didn't like all the children running around. But once the bell went, I was fine. And I really did enjoy school. We weren't wealthy. I went to a public school, and I had loving parents. I went to Sunday school. That was a big part of my life. I grew up in a Christian family.
So you said a moment ago that you would get to school the moment the bell went. Am I correct that you became a teacher later? And did you do
Like,
the same thing?
No. I was always at school
Well
early.
before the bells started, yeah.
And I didn't ever, we used to play schools all the time. I didn't ever think of being anything else but a teacher.
And Governor General, what about you? I hear that you were brought up in Wollongong around the Port Kembla steel factory. Your dad was a steel worker. I remember that area as having a very strong community sense.
It did have a good strong community sense, and you can imagine when I was young, the steelworks had about 25,000 people working there. So it had a very large young population, children. So there's a lot of children activity. So sport was really big. And we played rugby league, we played cricket, we swam. Any sort of sport was quite well supported in the region. So it was very active that way, very community minded. I think, the steelworks in a structural sense was the big BHP, it was the big player in the society there. But I always had a sense of us being supportive at the home front and so on. And I remember the big Christmas parties they used to throw for the kids each year. It was enormous. So I grew up, like Linda, very content. When you look back at it, you had a lot of freedoms to wander around, and sort of kids don't tend to do that so much these days. But we would take off for the day, walk home from school via the beach to go swimming, and get home whenever you got home. Good friends, and there were the institutions of the day, like the Leeds clubs and all those sorts of things. RSL in a different role would have their tentacles out looking after kids. So scholarships and assistance for families that were doing it a bit tough and so forth. I remember stories of those things happening in the community when I was young.
And you joined the army. Well, I think you went to university and you joined the army after school. I wonder, what was it about that institution that attracted you?
I could get a degree, frankly. When I was graduating from school, I did my sums and didn't think I could support myself through university. And school cadets had just been introduced at my school, so I was aware of Duntroon, and I joined because I could go there and get a tertiary education. Didn't go as a patriot or had no family background in the military or anything like that. It was a means to an end. But once I got there, and by the time I graduated and my first postings and so forth, it was it was a challenging life, but good company, good people. And then it just laid out so many adventures for us that it was hard to leave. Every time I thought my time was up, something else would come up, and you say, "Well, must go and do that. That's exciting." And but I suppose the outcomes of that is we're now living in our 30th house, and but we've been fortunate. We've seen a lot of the world. We've seen a lot of Australia. We've met some brilliant people. Good friends have been established from it. And so, what can you say after a life like that? It's been a blessing.
You have had a lot of time in leadership in your various guises and your various careers, if I can call them that. Tell me, is there a part for kindness in leadership? I feel these days that leadership is seen as something that's being tough and singular. How does kindness fit in with that?
Look, there is a place for it. There's no doubt. But it's often more in a structural form, or it's a caring form. So it's kindness in terms of caring for somebody, in looking after their well-being, making sure that their physical needs emotional needs and so forth are being tended to and whatever. So there's that leadership responsibility for your people, in which care is a very critical element in that. And so caring and kindness in that sense. I think there's also there's a help, you're helping people as well, because you're dealing often with many young people, particularly in your early days, and many of them are growing because youngsters join the military and they're 18, 19 and so forth. They're still developing as young people, and so developing a relationship with them that helps them grow is also a very important role of leaders.
You and Mrs. Hurley have been in your positions for nearly 2 years, I think it is. It's been a pretty incredible couple of years. I think we've had bushfires, we've had drought, we've had COVID, we've had floods.
Cyclones and plagues
right.
of mice, and mice everywhere.
Hopefully you're not too troubled by the mice, at least where you are now. But do you feel that as well, that it's been a particularly interesting and probably trying couple of years for the country?
Yeah, when our grandson was born on the 29th of December 2019, a couple of days later, we went out into the fire-affected areas. And he was probably about 5 days old, and I came home from the day at fireplaces and nursed him. And I looked at him and I thought, what kind of world have you come into? Because we'd had fires and floods and we'd had so many sad things happening. And anyway, I just remember, I'll never forget it, looking at him and thinking, this dear little baby has come into a world that's full of disasters. And then I honestly thought then, when I was nursing him, that it couldn't get any worse. And then soon later, COVID came along. So it's certainly been a trying time for our country, for the world in regard to the pandemic. But and a lot of people have been having a tough time. And that's why kindness is so important, to be kind and caring. And when the bushfires happened, everyone was showing kindness. Like, people were just donating things. What can we do? What can we do? And I just thought, wow, what a fantastic country we live in. Amazing people. And then when I saw people fighting in the supermarket for toilet paper, I thought, my goodness, was everyone for himself? It was just such a shock.
No, I would think, compared to the normal term of a Governor-General, of course, during that sort of period, 5 years or so, there'll be natural disasters and tragedies and so forth. But certainly since we started in July 19, and it's 2 years, so in 2 days' time, it's just been constant. It really has been. I think we had about 3 or 4 months, July to September, and then the bushfires started, and we're still in drought, of course, at the time. And our first visitor had been up to Cloncurry and Julia Creek to visit the Gulf country, because they'd had the huge floods up there in the January 6 months prior to that. The bushfires were just a horrific experience for everybody involved. Then the pandemic, and then we've been to Western Australia to visit people in the cyclones, the floods up and down the East Coast. So it has sort of piled on, and I've said in a number of speeches and so on that, keep looking to the horizon to see the four horsemen come over the hills, because what else is going to be thrown at us? But for all that, as Linda says, through this, we call it here at Government House a richness of spirit in people. And we just see that writ large. Yes, we see the rat bag end, and we know they're there, everyone has them. But there's a real, as I say, the term we use here is richness of spirit in people. They're resolute, they're a pretty tough lot, but they do look out for each other. And I think that's really, we have so many stories. When we were down at Bairnsdale, outside of Bairnsdale, there's a little village called Lucknow, the Indian Lucknow. Had a little community hall there where some ladies had set up a relief centre. We were down there visiting. They told us they were in the supermarket the previous day. They had 2 huge trolleys of toiletries, toothpaste, and all that sort of stuff that they were buying to take back to the recovery centre. An elderly couple were behind them at the counter when they got to pay. They asked them why did they have so much stuff. They explained, and the elderly couple said, "Fine, we'll pay for the lot." And you run into these stories all the time, and so it tells you a lot about Australians, the way they respond. And of course, it's uneven, and there'll be bad stories and so forth. But on the whole, we should have every confidence in the people in this country. They're a good lot.
There was another lady we met who was 90, and we were told she was 90, and she was happy for us to go and see her burnt house, because some of it was still standing, but most of it was burnt. And I expected a little old lady. Well, she looked about 70, and the first thing she said was, "I don't have anything. The clothes I'm wearing are from the ladies at Big W."
I think she was a bit embarrassed standing before the Governor General in her
borrowed
clothes.
She looked lovely.
Yeah.
Anyway, she was a dynamo,
Mm.
and she had 2 cats, and one of them was missing. And well, I won't tell the whole story, but anyway, the cat came back. A neighbour offered her a granny flat in their house up the road for her to live in while her house was being rebuilt.
Mm.
And I said the cat came back, so that was a happy ending as well. And now she has a new home, and I can't wait to go and meet her again and see her in her new home.
That's a lovely story. I wonder if I can take you, Governor General, just down a slightly different path, because the last time I heard you speaking, you were talking about Indigenous Australians. And I know this is an area, these are people that are very close to your heart. We seem in the sort of rush of COVID news not to have been talking very much about what's happening with Indigenous Australia. Has it gone off the radar a little, do you think?
Well, I think it's just hard to get space at the moment. I mean, every news hour that starts, it's 15, 20 minutes of COVID news, and everything else is fighting for attention. So we know that discussions, debate is continuing about the government's response to the issue of a voice to Parliament, constitutional legislation, what should it look like, and surveys are being done, and I think it's coming closer to a decision. And you'll see some articles about that in the print media, but it's very hard, really, frankly, for anything else to get oxygen at the moment. And I think that's unfortunate because it's a big issue at the moment. But its time will come in one form or another. But when we travel, we do again have one of our priorities of engaging with the Indigenous community, looking at issues and trying to be helpful where we can. And so we have a relationship with a number of organisations that are involved in different aspects of Indigenous life. But if I can, in terms of a recent experience, we were in Cooktown 2 weekends ago. They have a 10-day Cooktown Expo, which is looking at, there's the tourism part of it and so forth, but it is built around probably the only recorded act of reconciliation between Indigenous people and white people in our history. The first one, sorry. And that was between Cook and the Bumagay people at Cooktown. And Cook was there for 48 days while he repaired the Endeavour. And they do a reenactment of this at the expo. And I must say, at the end of the reenactment, which involves the local Indigenous people who have very assiduously gone through Cook's diaries, Banks, Solander, because they don't have an oral history of it themselves, and interpreted what they've read in those histories and applied it back to their culture so they can react to and respond and act it. At the end of that, maybe 600, 700, 800 people watching, I think. Mm. the actors pretty much on the site where this act of reconciliation occurred, at the end of it, everyone was in tears. And the actors were hugging each other. So can you imagine looking down and seeing a big Aboriginal man, Bumagay fellow, hugging Captain Cook? Yeah, that's not an image we're used to. And everyone's in tears. And I kept saying to myself, what have I seen here? What have I seen here today? And I think what I've seen is a vision of what Australians would like to happen. And I wonder, how does that story from Cooktown go onto a larger scale? To me, that would be something the news should examine. That's something the media should be going and having a look at and saying, righto, this is really odd up here. What's happened here? Why did this occur, and why do people respond to it the way they do? I think there's something in there. As I say, I was scratching my head about it, but there's something there. And it all came down to an act between what Cook wrote about or described in his diary, a little old man, and Cook having an exchange, the man with a broken spear, and Cook handing back the spears that they gathered in the little fight they'd had, and calming the whole thing down and creating space.
Wow.
It's a powerful story, and it's a powerful image. And how my issue at the moment is, and I keep running around my head, how does this apply to us more broadly? Because there are other elements to that story which allowed it to occur that I think perhaps we could replicate. That greatest act of kindness to our nation, if we could make that occur.
Wow, it would be the greatest act of kindness to our nation. Those are big words.
Well, I think I thought it was very profound. And the fact that there were so many people there and they all had the same emotional response. Unbelievable.
I heard this great list the other day. So to stay kind, we can be friendly, be helpful, listen, stop criticizing, don't try to control others, rise above retaliation, which I think is an amazing one. And the one I loved was be courteous in traffic. Do you have anything to add to the list?
Golly, that's a good list. Well, of course, being considerate of others. I'll let you speak.
No, you go.
Yeah. But I think being considerate of others, that old saying, walk a mile in someone else's shoes, gives you an insight and can change the way you think about people. We can be very quick to judge, and I think being slow to judge is probably an act of kindness. You're letting that story come out, the listening bit and so on. It's slow to judge would be a great way to be.
I'd like to see more people. I run or walk most days.
Mm-hmm.
And in Canberra, people are far more friendly than they are in other places. And sometimes I'll walk past or run past and good morning, hello, and people are shocked. And sometimes they'll say hello back, and other times they don't react at all. But I think that's just saying good morning to someone might be something that will be special to their day because someone said hello to them. And maybe they live alone, or maybe they're having a bad day, and for someone to smile and say hello, I think that's kind.
And I think that one of the things about kindness is it shouldn't be anticipated that you get something for it.
I like
you don't plan.
Yeah, you are just being kind because you should be. It's the way to react with other human beings. Yeah.
Like I fell off my bicycle one day, and two people stopped to help me, and that was really, really kind. And I don't know their names. And I just thanked them profusely.
But they left quickly when they saw the police.
Yeah, once they saw we had police protection. But no, I'm sure they were very upstanding people.
They were very upstanding people.
So, yeah, I think we can experience kindness every day. Just the checkout chick kind of saying good morning is that might be the only good morning someone might have all day.
How do we stop ourselves feeling overwhelmed, including at times like this?
Well, I know what I do.
Mm.
I sing. I sing a lot. I find, and I like making other people sing. And I think if you're having a bad day, if you burst into song, it will make you feel better. Even if you're totally alone, sing a song and you will feel better.
And I'm an optimist by nature, if you haven't gathered. And so I'm always, my advice to people would be, let's not look on the bright side, but look what's happening here, and be thinking about how we get through this. What are the paths? If you're standing still, hand wringing, then you're not going to go anywhere. So I'm probably a bit hard on people. Might say that's a bit hard because of you've got to be mentally tough to do that. And so no, I don't think. You've just got to say, okay, what's the next thing I've got to do? What's the next thing I've got to do? And work your way through many of the things that are in front of us. And for the big issues that we can't control, even as Governor General, I can't control where the economy goes or whatever, but I can do my bit to help others and improve my lot as much as I can. And I think within your powers, within your ability, and to get back to the whole point of kindness again, you get a lot more out of life when you're doing it for other people, I think. And so, okay, it's a bit tough at the moment, but it's that old farmer's attitude. When we travel down to the country and we go and talk to people in the drought and so forth, and I'll be talking to someone, and I'll say, how are you going? And they'll say, oh, I'm going really well, but it's really the guy down the road you need to worry about. No, we've got to worry about you.
Yeah.
But there is that lovely attitude, it's the guy down the road you've got to worry about as well. So, well, let's worry about the other person, and it might be a bit better for all of us.
Do you have a favourite philosophy or affirmation or quote that's close to your heart? Mrs. Hurley?
I just say kind and caring.
Mm. And me, I don't know if I've got a favourite quote. As I've got older and you see more of the world and understand more of the world, I just keep your eye on other people, and because it's easy to become really self-focused.
Just before I let you go, we all feel challenged, and sometimes that makes us drop our sense and our desire to be kind. Can I ask you, what challenges you? What makes you drop your guard?
Look, I think I just get annoyed when I see people reacting on little information or out of ignorance, who haven't taken the time to actually do a bit of thinking and research about issues. That really does annoy me. So for me, like social media sometimes with Twitter and so forth, when people react like this without a moment's thought and hurt people, I think that's damaging to us. And that's if something annoys me, it's that sort of behaviour.
I'm not sure what makes me. I get frustrated sometimes.
Technology, darling.
Oh yes, technology. Technology would be my worst nightmare. I get but luckily I have kind people
to look after you.
to help me. Yes. Yeah. Would you mind if I sum it up in a song?
I'd love you to.
You've got the Kindjuly song. Good. Okay.
Put it up a bit louder. Being kind and caring helps people in a good way. Reaching out with a smile, kindness may make their day. Sometimes our life is tough and people can feel down. Sharing, caring, kindness may turn the sadness round. Living can be rough, but we can do our bit. A smile and showing kindness may help a little bit. It isn't always simple, but we can show we care. An act of care and kindness may help to clear the air. To have somebody listen can maybe change a life. Kind actions and encouraging may turn the dark to light. We know it isn't easy, but let's be more aware. A kind word and support, with love it shows you care. Kindness costs you nothing, when shared it's rich as gold. With sharing care and kindness, happiness will unfold. So that's my summing up of kindness.
Well, that's
Yeah,
like
so you asked for a one-liner, you got many lines.
You like singing because you're good at singing, that's why.
Well, see, I think everyone's good at singing. Everyone can sing.
Well, that brings this Stay Kind conversation to a close. I've really enjoyed it so much and got to know much more about you both. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, and stay kind.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. It's been lovely, and our best wishes to all your listeners.